Hey, thanks for stopping by. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. It looks like I need to do a mirror alignment on my Thunder Nova 35100, just a little bit out, and so I thought I'd capture the process today. A lot of times I see people recommending on the forums that I'm a part of to adjust your mirrors if you're not, if your cuts aren't quite right, those kind of things. And what I will say is, I will caution you in doing that right off the bat. Typically, mirror adjustments are the last thing that you want to do. And the reason why I say that is, number one, you've got to have a really good foundation of understanding how your laser works. And adjusting these mirrors is not for the faint of heart, meaning it's not hard to do, but you have to know what you're doing. So doing a mirror adjustment should be the absolute last thing that you're going to be doing. You should be ruling out to make sure that your mirrors are clean, your focus lens is clean. You want to rule out all of those little things. Maybe you got a lens that's canted, or you took out a mirror and cleaned it and put it back and it's not quite right in the housing, and that's what's throwing it off. Most of the time, these machines don't need alignment right off the bat, for sure. And so I just want to caution everybody, and just don't jump to that, oh, I've got to adjust my mirrors, unless you really know what you're doing. And so my goal today is just kind of show you the basic process, how I go about it. There's a lot of different ways you can do this. And this is just the way that I plan on doing it, and so I hope this helps people out. So the first thing that we're going to cover is I'm going to show you just basically how to check your alignment and see if it's out. And if it's out, then we're going to take that next step to go ahead and look at, see what it's going to take to do this. This process is not fast. And it's a little tedious, and so one of the things that you might as well understand right off the bat is that if you decide to do a mirror alignment, you want to be very focused. You don't want to be doing any other things. You want to do just this and methodically take your time to get this done. And again, I would highly recommend you making sure that you fully understand the operation of your laser before you attempt this. So let's jump into just some terminology here, and that's because it's important that you understand when I refer to mirror 1, mirror 2, mirror 3, that you understand where those are and what they do. Let's check it out. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about mirrors, their placement, and what they're labeled. So the first thing that I'm going to tell you is you're looking in the upper left-hand corner of your machine. And so this is the X gantry, this is the Y gantry, and that hole back there goes back to where the laser tube is, and mirror 1 is just inside that black hole that you see here. So that's mirror 1. It's the very first mirror that the laser beam hits after it leaves the laser tube. That laser beam hits that mirror, comes over here, hits this mirror here. This is mirror 2. And then it bounces off of this mirror right here and comes into this mirror. This mirror is angled at a 45-degree angle and shoots that laser beam down through the lens. And so this is mirror 3. So mirror 1 back there, mirror 2 on the left-hand side of the X gantry, and mirror 3 is going to be on your laser head itself, and it's canted at a 45-degree angle to redirect that laser beam that comes from here, hits that mirror, goes down, goes through your focus lens, and then onto your material. Okay, so mirror 1, mirror 2, mirror 3. The next thing we want to talk about is we've got to set up your laser for the proper pulse power. You can see right now, I push the escape a couple times. I have no files loaded in this controller at all. And you'll see right now we have a max power of 9%. Thunder recommends, depending on the size of your laser, anywhere from 7% to 11%, and you just really have to play with it on what percentage point you want to say. So let's say, for example, I'm going to push the menu button. I'm going to come down here, and let's assume for a minute that this was defaulted at 20%. We'll reset this, enter, and now you see that this is 20%. So let's say that this is what your machine was set at with no file loaded. And if I push the pulse button now, it would give me a 20% power pulse. That's way too much. So the first thing we've got to do is adjust that. So all we're going to do is come in here to menu. We're going to scroll down to max power, hit enter. We're going to use our left and right arrows to put the little underscore under the 2 and go ahead and take it to 0, and then come over here and make this, we're going to go about 8% for this one, and we're going to say enter. And you notice now that this max power says that 8%, and we'll be good to go. So now I've got my percentage, and you may have to play with this. Remember that you don't want to hold your finger on this pulse button. As long as you hold your finger down on this pulse button, it's going to deliver a laser shot. And so you're going to want to be very quick, meaning that you're just going to hit this until you see a little puff of smoke on that tape, and that's all you want. The longer you hold this pulse button down, the bigger that hole's going to get, and it's really not going to tell you anything. So just a real quick hit, you're looking for a little puff of smoke, and we'll start to test our mirror alignment and see where we're at. Now that we've got our power pulse set up, I'm going to put a piece of tape on this right here, okay? I've got the left top door down. The camera is mounted and looking towards the front of your laser, and so I've just pulled the gantry forward so I can put a little piece of tape here. And we'll just take a little piece of blue painter's tape. Doesn't have to be anything special. And what we're going to do is we're going to cover that up. And what you want to do is you really want to push down. I want to make a mark so you can clearly see that circle, because where that circle is critical to the decisions we're going to make on our alignment. So now that we've got that done, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the gantry all the way to the back, hit the pulse button, and then pull it all the way to the forward and hit the pulse button again. And the idea is that we want to make sure that they're both, number one, at the same location, and that they're roughly in the middle of the circle. And so that's what we'll do next. Okay, I've got the camera inside the laser. We've got the gantry pulled all the way to the very back of the machine. I've got my tape. And I'm going to go ahead and close the lid and hit pulse, and you should see a little bitty mark that will show up right there. All right, you see that we've got a nice hole, easy to see. So what we're going to do now is we're going to pull the gantry forward without removing the tape and do another pulse. Okay, we've got the gantry pulled all the way forward. We're going to close the lid, do another pulse. You can see we've got 2 pulses now, and I'll bring them around and we'll take a look at them. Okay, I've got the left-hand top door open, and we're looking at the front of the machine, and I've had my 2 pulses, and they're both exactly in the same location. The other thing that I did before I take this piece of tape off is I marked what direction is up, and I took a pencil and just kind of filled in that area so you can clearly see that round area, because we've got to have a reference what direction we need to move this beam. You'll also notice that my red light is not where my laser beam is. One thing that you want to understand and be very clear is the red light has nothing to do with where your laser beam is adjusted. The red light is adjusted in the back of your machine and has no bearing on your path that your laser beam takes. They're 2 completely separately adjusted things. So don't go by this red light. Now what we are going to do is we're going to adjust this red light to the laser beam hole, and that will make it easier for us to make adjustments because we can visually see what direction we're adjusting without having to do a bunch of pulse work on the laser. So our next step is going to be, it looks like we're a little bit off, we're not in the center, and so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to adjust this red light to where this existing laser beam is, and then from that point we can make adjustments to mirror 1 to bring this laser beam back up into the center. Okay, we're going to put a piece of blue painter's tape right on the face here. Remember, I want to push down hard so I can see that round circle. We're going to close the lid and do a pulse, and then we're going to pull the gantry to the far right, so we're all the way at the very back of the machine. We're going to do one all the way to the left, one all the way to the right, and then we're going to do the same thing at the front of the machine. Okay, we've got our 2 pulses, and so what we're going to do is we're going to fill this in right quick with some, just to make sure we can see it well. I'm going to kind of illustrate that ring real well. We're going to make sure that we mark this up, and then we can take the tape off. You see both marks right there, and we'll go ahead and do the same thing to the front of the machine. So you can see I've got both pulses done. They're both in exactly the same spot, so that's good, but you can see we're not even remotely close to the center of this. And so I suspect that when we do a pulse test down here at the nozzle, you're going to see that the beam is not coming out right in the middle of this nozzle, and that can be a problem because your cuts are going to be inconsistent. If you do a lot of print and cut stuff, it will affect that. So this lower right hand corner, which typically is where you're going to see any adjustment that's not quite right, we definitely need to go ahead and do something with this because it's not hitting this focus lens right in the middle, which is where you want that laser beam to be. So the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to put a piece of tape underneath here and do a pulse right quick, and we're going to see if the laser beam comes out of the middle of this nose cone or not. And if it doesn't, that truly means that we're going to have to make some adjustments. So we'll do that next. Okay, the very last thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to just put a piece of tape on the bottom of this nozzle. And again, you're going to want to press hard on it so you can actually see the profile of the end of that nozzle. We're going to pull this back down into the lower right-hand corner, so that seems to be where it's out of alignment the most. And then we're going to do a quick pulse and see where we're at, see where it's coming out. Okay, we've got it pulled back in the lower left or right-hand corner. Let's do a pulse. Okay, we've got a pulse. And to look at this, you can see that it's not coming out of the middle of the nose cone. It's right on the very edge. Matter of fact, it looks like it might be hitting just slightly the edge of the nose cone. So again, that indicates that you've got a little bit of an alignment problem and you need to bring this back so this laser beam is coming out of the middle of that nose cone, and you'll solve some problems if you're having issues in the lower right-hand corner of your machine. So let's take a quick look at what we've come up with. So this is the Y gantry, both back and forward, and you can see that we've got the pulse in the same location. It's not necessarily in the center, but they are together, which is the #1 goal. You want to make sure that your beams are together both forward and back, left and right, and it looks like all of these are together, so that's not an issue. The X in the back is pretty close to the center, and they're together. So in the back of the machine, the X, this is in pretty good shape. So then this would be testing between mirror 2 and 3, and the X front, you can see we've had a pretty good shift from pretty much somewhat in the middle, a little bit low, which is typically where you want it, to the in the front part of the machine. You can see that we're quite a ways off of center. Being a little bit low at this point is not that big a deal, but it does look like we need to adjust it a little bit. But they are together. And then you'll notice that the nose cone, when I did a pulse test in the lower right-hand corner of my machine, that my pulse is coming out really close to the edge of that nose cone. And that can be a problem. So it's this that concerns me more than anything, just because if it starts clipping the edge of that nose cone, I'm not going to get a true round beam. It can affect my cutting, the way my engravings look. So we definitely have to do some minor adjustments, not any major adjustments. So the next thing we're going to do is, the first thing that I want to do is get my red light so it's the same point as where my laser beam hits. And the reason why I want to do that is then when I'm adjusting my mirrors, I can visually see what direction I'm going and where I need to be. And so if you adjust your red light to your laser beam and then adjust your mirrors, your red light and your laser beam will at that point be at the same place, and it just makes it a lot easier to adjust. So the next thing we're going to do is to adjust the red light to the laser beam. And once we get that done, we'll start making some minor tweaks in our mirrors to get this back where it needs to be. Okay, so I just got through adjusting the red light to where the hole was in the tape, and this is on mirror 2. And so that way my red light is following the same path as my laser beam, and it'll be easier for me now to adjust the mirror on number 1 to move this to the left to get a little bit more in the center. Okay, so I loosened up the silver screws, loosened the stop ring on the gold screws, and adjusted it. This is where I was. This is where I ended up. So basically you can see I had just moved it up slightly and over to the right just a little bit. Using the red light as my guide, because my red light and my laser beam are in sequence now, and it's just a lot easier to do when you can look at that red light and see which direction you're going. So this is mirror 2, both near and far, and so we've got the beam from mirror 1 to mirror 2 pretty much where we want them. Now we've got to move and look at mirror 3 and see where we're at there. Well, here's the test results. Looks like the minor adjustment I made on mirror 1 to 2 did the trick. I didn't have to do anything else. So let's just take a quick look here. So my Y, this is where I started. It was a little bit shifted to the left. I adjusted it, and now it's pretty much dead in the middle. So I just basically just shifted just a little bit to the right, and got that. Then I moved, and you can see that right on the back part for X, it was a little bit to the right. I shifted a little bit to the left. One of the things that you're going to see is you're not going to have this dead in the middle of every position. You're going to see a little bit of shift here and there. And the bottom line is it should never be in the, it should never look like this. Or what's going to happen is it's going to come out of your nose cone at a funny angle. So for the X front, which is typically your problem, you can see X front, I was way over down and to the right. And then when I did that one adjustment in mirror 1, it brought me back to pretty much dead center, which is where I wanted. And then this is the nose cone, and look at the dramatic difference here with just that one single adjustment on mirror 1 to bring this over just a little bit to the right and get it into the center, it fixed everything. This is the X front, and it's right in the middle, a little bit low, which is exactly where you want it. And look at the difference in the nose cone shot. So I was way off right at the edge of the nose cone coming out of the nose of the nozzle. It looked like to me it was almost getting ready to hit the end of the nozzle, and now you can see that I'm clearly in the middle of that nose cone. So the slight adjustment that we made on mirror 1 to bring this over to the right a little bit pretty much fixed everything. And so now you know how to do an alignment. Again, it takes a little time. I think the secret for me is if I can get the red light so it's exactly the same beam path as the actual laser beam, then when I'm making my adjustments on a mirror, I know I can see where it's going and what you need to do. And it makes life a lot easier if you can do that. Just remember, the red light is not, it's got a completely different way you adjust it. Hope this information was helpful. If you guys like the content, I'd sure appreciate a thumbs up. And if you haven't done so before, if you please subscribe, I'd sure appreciate it. We're really looking forward to the 20,000 by the end of the year. It's going to be kind of a stretch. So if you haven't subscribed, please do so. And if you have the ability, if you could give me a thanks and contribute to the channel, I'd sure appreciate it. Everybody have a great day.